The player recaps continue. PJ Washington is up next. Will he be a Charlotte Hornet next year and beyond? We'll talk about that today on Locked On Hornets.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube, by the way. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That's Doug Branson. Check his Substack out, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can catch me on WFNZ Sports Radio 92.7 FM every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. PJ Washington, Doug, let me ask you this before we start to go back and recap his season. Coming into the year, polarizing player, clearly one of my favorites, one of the guys I liked because what he could do defensively. Last year really took a jump in efficiency. I know the consistency has always been kind of something people have thrown against him, but really had a nice year last season or 2 seasons ago, however you want to put it, efficiently, right? This year, the usage goes way up. You see 82% or in the 82nd percentile in the NBA. He will never finish that high again. That is the highest usage percentage I think he's ever going to post in his NBA career. And the numbers dip a little bit, but still just...
and dip just a little bit now. Hold on. Because, like, I mean, you look
efficiency?
Yeah, his efficiency, because his points per shot attempt two seasons ago was 118.1, and that represented essentially average for bigs in the NBA. Now, I
was just looking at field goal percentage is what I was. So, yeah, I mean, that's it definitely more than a little bit. I was looking at something different. But according to Cleaning the Glass, yes, it dipped quite a bit from the 50th percentile to really at the 20th
the 19th percentile. It goes from 118 to 108. So, essentially, he's losing 10 points per shot attempt.
Yeah. So, with the efficiency having dropped that much, according to Cleaning the Glass, overall, would you say that this was the season you expected out? So just the numbers, right? The overall efficiency, if you will, or do you think that you saw something very different from what you expected coming in?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the injuries unlocked something, both the injuries and then Miles Bridges' absence, which is something that Steve Clifford pointed to in his exit interview, which is that one of the bigger effects of Miles Bridges not being on the floor is it meant that PJ Washington was going to be an every night starter, which I think you can then assume that had Miles Bridges been available, PJ Washington was probably going to be utilized as a bench piece. But instead, he got to be an every night starter. And not only did he get to be an every night starter, but because they were missing LaMelo and Terry and Gordon for different portions of the season, he became a primary scorer and sometimes handled the ball. Yeah. And there's just stuff that we just didn't imagine we would see. And I don't know if it expanded his offensive game or we just got to see a more expansive version of his offensive game. I mean, he developed a rhythm with those series of like pushes and floaters from the short mid-range. We saw a lot more of that. I think we saw probably a lot less of the pick and pop variety of offense that we've gotten used to seeing PJ Washington play with LaMelo, and he got a lot of ISO opportunities. So, yeah, I mean, it was way different than we thought, and he had a career high in scoring, 15.7 points per game, even if it was, a less efficient variety of scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you never expected him to have that kind of role coming into the year,
no.
And all the injuries happened, and that's what allowed you to have the usage percentage go up for sure. And I know
perfect timing, by the way, right? I mean, contract year. I said perfect timing, right? Like contract year. You've got to make you reject the offer, the early extension offer that the Hornets offered you, and said, "No, I'm going to bet on me." And he didn't know when he made that bet that all of these injuries were going to happen. He didn't know when he made that bet that this whole Miles Bridges situation would go down and he would get a chance to be starter. I mean, really, if you're looking at it, like all of the pieces fell into place for PJ Washington to make some big money this offseason.
Well, but I do think there's a happy medium there, though, right? Like I don't know if I would describe it as all the pieces falling correctly into place, because you probably, if you want that efficiency or the points per shot attempt to go up, then you probably are asking for some of these guys to not be hurt majority of the season, right? Like I think a perfect mix for PJ would have been having him, I don't know what the usage would be. Maybe you'd be in the 70th percentile. Maybe you go in the 65th percentile of the NBA, a little less than right at 19. And then you would have the point per shot attempt go up because he would be in a role really better suited for him. Because as much as I like PJ Washington, it's because I like what he can do for a team that has its 2 or 3 offensive stars. And he can fit in perfectly as a power forward alongside that lineup, doing the whole versatile defensive thing, knocking down threes, but the 3 percentage did go down this year. Like that's what hurt the shot attempts. It's the fact that you had more volume from the perimeter, but he wasn't hitting at a better rate. And I think that's what you're talking about with PJ. So yeah, I'm with you. I think you would still take this type of isolation basketball or this type of offense where you're running it through him. If you're PJ, I think you would still take it. I don't know if it was the perfect scenario for PJ, though. I don't know if it was perfect. What were some of the stats you were pulling up?
Well, I think I'll say that it was perfect in that it allowed him to showcase that, hey, occasionally I can be a go-to player offensively. Because look, the team is not going to stay healthy for all 82 games of the season. They will need at some point to rely on some of these auxiliary players. And the question that a team has is, can we rely on that player? And I think they got the answer to that question. Yes, we can rely on that player, but we only need to rely on that player occasionally, because there probably is some middle ground between who he was 2 seasons ago, which is like exclusively a guy that's, you're running pick and pop for, you're expecting him to play a lot on the defensive end of the floor and sacrifice a lot offensively. And the guy that we saw this year, who was still a really good defensive player, but was much more involved offensively as like a primary scorer. There's probably some medium there that they want to achieve with him, and he's got room to grow in his game as well. So, it's not like I think he's pretty close to fully cooked, but there's probably a few things that he's working on. In fact, I have a clip from his exit interview talking about some of the things that he wants to work on in the offseason, if you're interested in seeing that.
Yeah, I am. And I'll tell you, when I had the interview with PJ not too long ago, he was joking about how he feels like he could beat himself easily one-on-one now, right? I talked about just the improvement he's made since his rookie season, the nuance of the game, being able to handle the basketball a lot more, play ISO or just have the offense run through him. And he laughed and he said, yeah, it's crazy. I think about if I were to play myself one-on-one then, right, myself now against rookie PJ, I would cook him. I'd destroy him. And he said, it's just kind of funny to see the improvement that I made. Let's hear from PJ here during the exit interviews.
For me right now, I feel like I can be better off the ball, making decisions, playmaking, scoring. So that's my biggest emphasis going into this summer, just being able to score off the ball and keep working on my dribbling, just make sure everything is up to par. And I'm just excited, like I said.
So I mean, there, I don't know what happened there.
So it's okay.
Got a little froggy.
Voice left you for a second. It's okay. AI stole it.
So what I think you're hearing there from PJ and talking about working more off the ball is a recognition that like this season was an anomaly, that he's not going, and that's good that he recognizes that he's not going to get the exact same opportunities next season. It is going, if they do retain Miles Bridges, maybe we can talk about this more when we come back to this in the third segment, but it's going to get a little awkward if they bring back, you've still got Gordon, you bring back PJ, you bring back Miles. Who plays? Who starts?
Yeah. And I feel like PJ is the guy too, though. So now, of course, you recognize that the role is going to take a step back if everybody's healthy. But Doug, even since we're watching the postseason right now, I think PJ is one of those guys where if you follow the Justin Tinsley theory, who's on Around the Horn, he's been great, I think. And he talks about the 2-1-1 theory. Can you get 2 games from your star and then 2 random games from, different role players, like the Rui game for the Lakers? Yeah,
He's stealing my. Really, this is not Justin Tinsley. This is Doug Branson. He's talking about Ben Trenches, which is my thing.
Okay. So the 2-1-1 theory was actually derived from your original Ben Trench theory. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Justin, you owe me money.
Either way,
got my eyes on you. You and Will Kunkel. Justin Tinsley, Will Kunkel. Eyes on you.
Okay, yeah, man. I still, Will Kunkel's had an eye on him for quite some time. All right, let's talk a little bit more about PJ later on in the episode. But we're going to switch things up in the second segment. Coming up next on Locked On Hornets.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
It was an athletic players poll, not an athletic players. I guess they're all athletic in their own way. A players poll.
Hold on. That would be hilarious if they only surveyed athletic. If the Athletic only surveyed athletic players, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I want to get only that crew and hear their opinion. Sorry to a couple of players out there. The Athletic, the publication, did have a player poll on the worst venues to play in sports, and there were a couple of other things mentioned in that article as well, and we will get to that in just a moment.
Kyle Anderson, I'm sorry, you cannot be interviewed for this.
Eric Collins would dive for it. Like, he would dive for his survey and take it away. Eric Collins, no thank you, slow-mo. He would not allow that to happen. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. It is a game that if you've dreamed about being a GM in the NBA, this is the one for you. Again, Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Download it right now. This game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. And in that simulation, you're responsible for everything from dealing with challenging personalities, hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading and training the right players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, all the ups and downs that come with it. Locked On Hornets listeners get a 100% free boost too when they go to Ultimate Pro Basketball GM, and you get a 100% free boost to your franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. Only the Athletic players poll. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets.
Is Locked On Hornets.
Walker, sometimes you don't have to have the best package.
Okay.
Sometimes you just have to have the only package. If you wait, if my dating life taught me anything, sometimes you just have to wait around long enough until you're the only thing remaining. And then suddenly you look pretty great in comparison.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug. So now we'll give you a little sandwich here, right? We're going to give you a couple of segments on PJ Washington, the first and the third, and generally positive. PJ, I like PJ, generally positive show. Not been, we've had a couple of YouTube comment sections that weren't thrilled with us the last couple of episodes because that's just how the cookie crumbles. This just might how I wonder what the response will be here, because we have the players poll from the Athletic, and the survey question here was what was the hardest, or what arena had
has the worst fans. Yeah.
Thank you. And there you see right at the top of the list, if you're watching YouTube, according to 99 votes, the Hornets Spectrum Center is at the top of the list by a pretty decent margin, mind you, on what arena has the worst fans. You have Little Caesars for the Detroit Pistons second. You have Capital One Arena for the Wizards. That is third. And again, they are a significant portion behind them. Doug, what do you see when you see this graphic?
Well, I think it seems like the players had some different versions of worst when they answered this question. Most of them seem to answer it thinking that worst was defined by arenas that are empty, where the fans are not showing up, that it's not really fun. It's not fun to play in an empty arena. But then you have, underneath the Wizards, you have the Jazz Arena, and you have the Celtics, the TD Garden. And so I think there were a subset of players who answered this question, essentially, which arena has the most racist fans? Like, who has the worst fans in terms of the things that are coming out of the mouths of people who are watching these games? But just to take this question in the direction of why the Spectrum Center is at the top, it's pretty obvious. Like despite the team saying that they sold out 15 or 16 games or whatever, I think anybody with eyeballs and ears, I say ears because when they played at home, you could hear Steve Clifford like mouthing out every single play and every single curse that he had for the officials because the building is empty. And the building is empty because the Hornets have not given fans, especially casual fans who don't who don't buy season tickets and don't, pay close attention to the team. They haven't given those casual fans much reason to take the kids to a game on a Wednesday night or whatever.
Yeah, they haven't been to the playoffs in a while. They haven't won a playoff series in over 2 decades.
Right. Yeah, that's the more important thing, right? Because it's not just going to the playoffs, because 2016 was still a long time ago. But you haven't won winning playoff series. What it does, it continues to put you on national TV. So that's one thing. But also, and again, I'm talking from the perspective of casual fans. It's like, oh, the Hornets are on national TV, and they've been on national TV now for a few weeks. They must be important. I should probably go catch a game. But it also signals when you win playoff series that there is some modicum of hope that you could just get lucky enough to maybe get to an Eastern Conference Finals, to maybe even get to a Finals. Maybe a few injury breaks go your way. But you only have that thought if you win a playoff series, which the Hornets, as you just mentioned, have not done. I don't think we can stress this enough. They have not won a playoff series in multiple decades.
Yeah, that's the first and foremost right there, okay? When you have institutional losing, it is going to be tough to create an institution that has a nice fan base at the arena. Just not going to happen. So this is the problem right now, and that is the task at hand for the Charlotte Hornets organization. I wanted to get to a couple of other categories here on this player poll. Dennis Smith Jr., though, he received one most underrated player in the league vote. So he was a part of the other category where there's a whole bunch of players thrown in the other statistic in this who's most underrated category. Yeah, and it's awesome to see for DSJ, who only it seems like everybody else understands just how valuable he was, because he was still a talking point for anybody that watches the NBA and the Charlotte Hornets, even on a minimal level, right, Doug? Like, this is someone that did get his recognition this year, and deservedly so.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when he those first few games, when he looked like one of the best, I won't even say like one of the best. I mean, he looked like Defensive Player of the Year material for those, first 5 or 6 games of the season. And he was opening eyes across the league, both in the media and players who are sharing some of his plays. And so I think when he did get injured, though, it sort of derailed a little bit of that, the losing of the team, that derails it, because you're not going to find many Hornets at all on any of these lists. Even like Clutch Player of the Year, for example, they just did the voting for that. I didn't see P.J. Washington get one vote. And P.J. Washington has had some really good clutch stats this year. According to the team, he's 19th in the NBA with 33 made field goals in the clutch. Of the 52 players to attempt at least 50 clutch field goals this season, of the 52 players to attempt at least 50 clutch field goals this season, including De'Aaron Fox, Bradley Beal, Bam Adebayo, PJ ranked 4th in field goal percentage. Okay, so he didn't get it, but he didn't get a single vote for Clutch Player of the Year. De'Aaron Fox is going to win that award, and Bradley Beal and Bam did, but because their teams are winning, right? So, that's going to hold everybody down, unfortunately. But DSJ, I think he is underrated, and I hope the Hornets find some room, in their salary figures to bring him back.
A couple of other categories I wanted to go to. So it is, which current coach aside from your own would you least want to play for, and which current coach aside from your own would you most want to play for? Steve Clifford, he appeared on both lists. Of course he did. Wow. If you look at Steve Clifford, he was tied at 3.2% for most want to play for, and that was, I think, 9th. So he was tied for 9th in that category. And then you go to least want to play for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was 7th at 3.6% of the vote. Does that tell you anything that he was on both lists?
Well, I think a certain type of player is going to groove with Clifford. Yeah. And then there's going to be a certain type of player that doesn't groove with Clifford. And I don't think that there is much in between. I don't think you're going to find many players who go, yeah, Steve Clifford, he's aight. Like, it's either going to be, I love how honest this guy is. I love how straightforward he is. And I love the fact that he knows my game in and out. And so I want to play for that guy. And then you're going to have other players who go, yeah, he stuck me on the bench and, he was on my case constantly about X, Y, and Z. And, he was a little too honest with me. I think you're going to find a subset of players like that. But I think too, one of the factors is when he makes a decision on a guy, it seems difficult to flip that switch back, it feels like once he makes a call on a guy, like you're a bench guy or you're not really part of this rotation, there's not a ton of flexibility there. He prefers to be consistent with rotations and different things because he is somebody that really focuses on building teams for the playoffs. And unfortunately, he just hasn't had the talent, to get to the playoffs, so there's been a mismatch there. But yeah, I just think that there's going to be a lot of polarization on Steve Clifford.
Yeah, and that's what you could see here. And it wasn't anything crazy one way or the other. Right there in the middle, it kind of makes sense. And the last thing I'll update everyone on, there were 8 teams in the category pick a team besides your own to win the championship. 8 team received votes. So the Hornets, they did tie for 9th in that category. So some teams, believed in the Hornets as much as anybody outside of the 8 teams that received at least one
that's
vote
Ball,
there.
Right? That's LaMelo Ball. And the fact that they have a big draft pick. If they get LaMelo Ball and Wembanyama, then all of a sudden, that turns it around. Now, I think an interesting question, going back to the first thing that we talked about, the worst home arena or whatever, would that change with a Wembanyama draft pick? And I think certainly it's going to affect attendance when you get the number 1 overall pick and it's a high profile player. Although I'm interested in it being, I know the NBA has shown a light on Wembanyama, but still he's an international player. And so I question, again, how many casual fans maybe they've kind of heard of this Victor guy, but it's not the same as a LeBron James. It's not the same as a high-profile college player who went deep into the tournament. So I question that. But I think as it builds, and if they were to win next season with a Wembanyama, then yes, it would bring fans back. But I look at the Kings, Walker, and that's an interesting situation for me. The Kings had the longest playoff drought. They hadn't really won anything since those Vlade Divac teams.
Wow, that's an interesting way to put that instead of Chris Webber or
Vlade Dottie. He's the first player I think of.
Peja, Stojakovic,
smoking heaters in the tunnel. Vlade Divac is the guy that I think of. Come on,
for sure.
Who are those other guys you were talking about? I only watched Vlade Divac.
Nobody. It doesn't matter. But yes,
Mike who? Bibby? Is that no?
Well, go ahead.
Well, so my thing on the Kings, Walker, this is what I want to ask you is you see the Kings now, and the fans are just rallying so hard for that team, and it's crazy. The building is incredibly loud. Even you can hear it on TV. You're like, wow, I need to turn this volume down a little bit. And would the Hornets fans, do you think, would they show up like they have that Sacramento has for the Kings?
Yes, I do. I do think so. I think this fan base would be really happy to see a team get 3rd in the Eastern Conference. You have a star in LaMelo. Remember, this was not some dead franchise last year as far as the fan base goes when LaMelo Ball was out there healthy and playing and getting an all-star team. And look, when Miles Bridges did not have the felony domestic violence arrest and he was out there dunking on everybody, you had some fun brand of basketball even at the end of the season when you weren't competing for a playoff spot and instead we're going to be doomed for the play-in spot. The fans showed up at a higher level. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, nobody wants to hear it, but it's as simple as winning, and you won't have the Spectrum Center be at the top of the list of worst fans anymore.
So I'm gonna argue with you here and say that I don't think they would show up in the way that Sacramento's fans have showed up. I think they will show up. Like, you're going to sell out.
So do we need the beam is what you're saying?
Well, now don't discount the beam, because if the Hornets get Wembanyama and they start winning next season, they better figure out quickly what their thing is going to be, because the beam is an excellent thing that, again, is one of those like marketing tools that will reach out to the casual fan and go, oh, cool, we got to take the kids to see the beam. Like it's a beautiful thing. The Hornets,
it's awesome.
But the winning comes first. You got to do the winning, because otherwise it looks silly. It looks stupid. And you do what the Knicks did and the bing bong thing, and people make fun of you relentlessly for it. So yeah, don't discount the beam. But the other thing is, I think fans would show up, especially if they got third in the Eastern Conference, if you're like, okay, they start winning. But I think it's going to take playoff series wins to get to Sacramento level, because you remember, the Kings are really essentially all that Sacramento has. The Hornets have a lot more competition now. They've got the Carolina Panthers. They've got Charlotte FC. There's some other stuff to do in Charlotte. So the Hornets have a little bit more competition, but also not only institutional losing, Walker, but there still is that sour taste in some people's mouths about how this team left. Now, I know Charlotte is a lot more full of transplants than it used to be, but there are still people hanging around that were, in that conversation in 2000 and 2001 and 2002. And so, I think it is going to take playoff series wins. I don't think they would show up for series number one. They'll sell the building out. But when I say show up, I'm talking about how loud it was in that Kings building. I think that's going to take series wins to accomplish.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think last year they showed that they would show up, that it's not dead. That's what I wanted to sell, right? The fact that they're not going to show up at the top of that list. But if we get Victor Wembanyama, yeah, that's what we need to roll with, man. That's what we need to roll with right there next to LaMelo Ball.
Excited.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I want the beam. I want Wembanyama. Let's make it happen. All right, coming up next, last segment on Locked On Hornets.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We'll finish up the PJ Washington talk, and we really didn't even answer. Do we think he did enough to convince the Hornets to sign him next year and beyond? So we'll talk about that and answer that question coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time, so you can forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of whatever event you're looking at. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, but not only sports. You can also look at tickets for concerts, comedy, theater, and even more than that. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you not only 100, but 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat too before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We'll finish up with PJ Washington coming up next.
This is Locked On Hornets.
I'm a fantastic Googler. I'm bad at logging in. If they were to do sort of a scouting report of me and my ability to use the internet.
Todd.
Yeah.
Excellent Googler, not a very good guy that's logging in. Very good at interrupting the host anytime he's trying to go on a rant.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I want to bring light, or a beam, if you will, to something that happened in that last segment, Doug, and I think it even went by you. So I made a joke. It's I'm a sarcastic guy, right? So I made a dry joke there. And it was when I pointed to the category of team most likely to win a championship this season. And I joked that there were 8 teams that received one single vote, and the Hornets tied for 9th, receiving 0 votes. And then you took that and you said,
well, I wasn't listening. Here's the thing. There was a really simple explanation to that. And it's not that it could have been your delivery. I'll have to go back and listen. I mean, you may have had poor delivery. We'll talk about that later. But it most likely was the fact that I was thinking about what I wanted to say and not listening to you.
Yeah, that's fine. You went, and what's funny is I was going to correct you, and then You went and you turned it into Sacramento and the Beam team, and it was this whole LaMelo and Victor thing. And then it was, and we needed to get to the Sacramento stuff. I was like, all right, I'm just going to correct this on the other side of the break so Doug can go on his soliloquy, and then we can roll on playoff talk.
Well, here's the thing. I can create content out of anything. It can be factual. It could not be factual. It could be right. It could be wrong. It could be a joke. It could be serious. Whatever you want, I'll make content out of it.
Okay, perfect. I think that's what makes us good right there. It's because we can create content out of anything whatsoever.
Am I listening? Am I not listening? Doesn't matter. I'll make content.
Yeah, that's listen to our show, man. Number one, baby. Come check us out and we'll make some content for you. I guess we should get to the original content. PJ Washington. Doug, we didn't really outright answer the question. I'll ask you. Did PJ Washington do enough last year in order to convince the Hornets to sign him long term?
I think so. What's that number going to be? That will be something that will be negotiated between the two parties, and I hope it's a number that allows them some flexibility over the next few years to add some more talent, because I don't think that PJ Washington showed me that he has the ability to become an all-star player. I think he showed me that he has the ability to become a very important role-playing piece on a playoff team. And so that's my concern when, Kupchak talks about re-signing all of these players, and them feeling like that's their advantage over other teams. That's all fine and good if you're drafting all-star players. But if you're drafting a bunch of role-playing guys and you're signing all these guys to long-term contracts, then all of a sudden that becomes actually a problem. It's a problem that Hornets team that we talked about that went to the playoffs in 2016 and barely lost to the Miami Heat. That's a problem they ran into, is they signed a bunch of role players to long-term contracts and then couldn't win anymore and couldn't get that team over the hump. And so that would be my concern overall. But just in terms of PJ, yeah, I mean, I think they've done enough. I think he did enough in terms of showing that he could be on a given night a primary scorer, and he did enough. I think, my question on the clutch stats that I read earlier is that can he hit the clutch shot when he hasn't been in a rhythm all game, when he's not getting the ball a ton? Can he hit the clutch shot? Can they go to him for a 3-pointer when he's only taken like 4 or 5 shots in a game? That would be my question on the clutch piece. But yeah, overall, I think he's done enough.
Yeah, and look, remember 2 years ago, it's always weird right at the end of the season. I refer to last year, and then what I really mean is 2 years ago. But the season prior to the one that just happened, we can remember the Atlanta game where he didn't do anything for 3 quarters offensively, and then boom, explodes for like 12 points. He wins in the fourth quarter, and he goes, but he goes for like 10, 12 points in the fourth, and he just goes bonkers after not doing anything offensively in the first 3. So I hope that is something that could just come back a couple of years later. And the clutch stats, they're only a good thing, right? Like you hit shots at that kind of rate. If you took that much, over 50 attempts in that situation, it's only a good thing. Yeah, I mean, clearly I think he did enough for the Hornets to re-sign him. I will reference block percentage again. PJ Washington, the premier blocker at the power forward position. I mean, it's like Patrick Williams, John Collins, and PJ Washington all there at the top of the league, who are the shortest players, right? So everybody else is 7 feet or known shot blockers. Defensively, we've seen him pick up assignments under James Borrego, like Kyle Lowry, like Kyrie Irving, like these point guards, all the way to a Domantas Sabonis, who, is in the playoffs right now with Sacramento. You can put him on anybody in a pinch. You can put him on anybody, and you can feel really good about him against maybe 3 different positions. He's not going to be an all-star. I love him. I think he's a great role player. I want to bring him back.
It's really interesting because, he came into this season saying he wanted to be known as a defender, and he had to become an offensive player. And 2 seasons ago, he sacrificed a lot of his offensive game because they absolutely needed him to be a defender. And so then he didn't really sacrifice a lot of his defensive game this season, because I have a stat for you here. He was one of 5 players in the NBA to record at least 50 steals, 75 blocks, and 100 3-pointers this season. So he was able to balance it out. He's only the 15th player in NBA history to have multiple seasons of 50 steals, 75 blocks, 100 3-pointers. He had multiple games this season where he had 4 steals, which was a career high for him. So he was consistently causing turnovers. I don't know that he was necessarily a lockdown guy because they needed his energy on the offensive end. You could not put PJ Washington every game on, the best forward or big. You couldn't do that like you could 2 seasons ago. So whipsaw is the word that comes to mind. Like, he's gone from all of these different roles, and now his role next season is going to change dramatically. But I think that is valuable. A guy that can do that is super valuable. A guy who's willing to do that, and not complain about it and want to still stay here. He expressed his desire in the exit interview to remain in Charlotte. So for those reasons alone, that he has been able to be that flexible and lead them to wins. That career high 43 points against Oklahoma City, a game that Oklahoma City needed to win, beat them. He was essential to winning those 2 games against Dallas. I mean, you could say that PJ Washington single-handedly kept Kyrie Irving out of the playoffs.
That's great.
And Luka Doncic. Right, so for that alone, I think it's worth an extension. And I just hope that it's favorable enough to both sides where it leaves some flex. It gives PJ what he feels like he deserves so that he comes into next season motivated to win. But it's not so much that it reduces the flexibility that the Hornets have to upgrade their roster.
No, I think you're right. Like, and to me, that's been my vision the whole time. I think that role is hugely valuable to do whatever you ask him to do, and do it at a pretty high level, and do it at, again, he's not going to be an all-star. I never expected PJ Washington to be an all-star, but I do think he's one of these guys that's really valuable to the point of, even stopping Julius Randle in a critical game against the Knicks when he's playing excellent defense on a Randle, or whether he needs to go for 40. He's a little ball of clay to mold to whatever. P. Clay Washington. Clay Washington is just going out there and do whatever you want. And then you can mold yourself into doing anything. And I hope we sign him so we can keep that nickname around. That'll do it.
Oh, man, that's so good. P. Clay Washington.
Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. We'll continue these player recaps, by the way. I think coming up next is Kai Jones. And so we'll have some of the rotation players, some of the stars, some of the guys that need to step up next season. Kai Jones will be coming up next. So make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the league with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow to talk Kai Jones.
Roller coaster.